Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Tribe Podcast. Today, it's actually very exciting because Lorena prepared this episode last minute. And it's all about Nostradamus. I always think I butcher his
Nostradamus.
nickname,
I'm pretty
right?
sure, yeah. Nostradamus.
That's his nickname, right? So his full name is...
I forgot his full name, but yeah. It's like...
Wait. We have it here. Michel de Nôtre-Dame.
That's it.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing an episode about his predictions for 2022. And it's very interesting, all the stuff that he got. So what was he labeling? Because I know, like, Baravicini, for example, when I did that episode, he wasn't saying the dates. He just kind of predicted things. But
I haven't read the book. So what I understand is he's written things. He's left behind written kind of confirmation of his predictions. And people were kind of like, is he just fantasizing and writing these things? Like, what's going on? Like, where's this coming from? But people have found that he has predicted things. I assume that there are dates to this because obviously there's predictions for the year. So I'd have to look further into that, but I've kind of looked online. So I've got stuff online. I'm hoping, because I've found different websites all saying pretty much the same thing of these specific predictions that I'm seeing for 2022. So yeah, for example, like there's at least this is what I've heard. He's like credited for predicting the moon landing, the assassination of JFK, and the nuclear bomb. So yeah, I've heard so much about Nostradamus. I'd really need to read his books for sure, or his like what he's left behind in writing, because it feels like, yeah, it does. If I didn't know he was channeling through the Akashic Records until somebody mentioned it. A few people have mentioned it to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe that's why I always found him so fascinating. I remember like talking a lot about Nostradamus in Uruguay with Mom and with other people. And they're like, oh, Nostradamus predicted this and predicted that. I'm like, what? And we always talk about the Akashic Records in the future, right? How the future is difficult to predict, how it's difficult to connect to that because there's so much free will. But I guess this goes to show that there's certain things that are they're kind of more aligned to happen. So they could happen, they could not happen. And I don't think everything he's put in there necessarily has to happen. But my idea for this episode was like, okay, let's connect with the different areas. So we have different kind of predictions he's come through. One is like, for example, the death of a political leader, global warming, inflation and starvation, AI, the European Union fall, and a World War III. So we'll connect with all of those with our Akashic Records open and see what we get, just to see what information we're getting, because obviously we've done a 2022 prediction, but we just kind of connected with certain topics. Maybe not all of these. These aren't things I've asked about necessarily. Yeah, maybe a little bit of the inflation and starvation thing. That's something that we've received before. In the European Union also, we saw some of that in our predictions, right? So it's interesting that I looked this up and I see that there. I'm like, oh, like I hadn't seen his information before. So he just seems like a really mysterious dude, like how cool that he was already channeling and people might have not known what he was channeling. I find that fascinating.
I think that in his era, they just probably didn't believe them. I don't know, actually. I'm guessing that people just didn't believe him. He was just probably looked as like completely nuts or something, right? I'm just fascinated. This was 1555. Just think about it. Like, where you and I are sitting down, opening the Akashic Records and trying to predict what's going to happen in the year that we're about to jump into. But he's predicting something that's so far from the reality he's living in.
Yeah.
That takes extraordinary abilities.
Yeah, and it says here he's written a series of mysterious verses, so maybe they're not books. I actually looked up and I saw that they sell some stuff online, like maybe the verses all put together as a book. I don't know. But if I can find that, I'll definitely put that in the show notes so people can check it out. But, you know, it's astonishing. I think that's the right word here. The predictions he's made. And it's interesting that we have some information for this year. And I think let's not put that to waste and connect with it and see what we get, right? But like you said, how can you see so far into the future? That is mind-blowing.
Maybe there's a level of them connecting. I'm saying that because I'm thinking about Paravicini. Sorry, I didn't say that. I'm thinking about Paravicini because he also predicted many, many things that are similar to what this guy's predicting. So that's why I said they. Maybe they are able to somehow connect to the timeline, to a specific timeline, and like expand out into it or something.
Maybe.
Because the reality is, we can't guarantee that anything's ever going to happen, even this year. I can't guarantee something's happen in 5 months, for example, because if everybody uses their free will in a totally different way than expected at the time that we're reading, that totally changes the timeline.
Yeah.
So they must have been jumping into I think there's two scenarios. I think that there's some prophets that connect to the worst timeline possible so that we as humanity are trying not to go. It's like to help us not get on that. I really believe that's what happens with most of those prophets. Like it's like they're connecting to a timeline that has maybe not more of a probability, but it's a more of a negative outcome that we don't want to see. So that the idea is the prophet's telling people this is what might happen, and people need to try to do everything they can to avoid that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of seeing it. Yeah,
like knowledge is power kind of perspective. I think that happens.
But also, what I see is like when I, at least this is how we see it, and I think we both coincide with this. We see probabilities too. We see that's maybe a more of a probability of this or that happening than this other thing happening. So maybe they're, like you're saying, they're just going with the most probable avenue, the most probable likelihood, whatever that is, and then going with that and channeling that and connecting with that possibility or probability. And if it happens, great, or not great, depending on what it is. And at least somebody said something. I personally don't think that they're connecting to the most probable outcome. I think that they're connecting to the most catastrophic outcome of all the probabilities or possibilities. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I really don't think any of these are written in stone. But again, if everyone's free will is used as a certain way, it can head that way. It actually can happen. So we have to work towards trying to gain consciousness so we can guarantee that it doesn't happen in some sort of way. Some of them are hard to say. How do you do that? Like, right? Well, okay. For example, I know that Benjamin Solari Paravicini predicted, I think he predicted 9/11. He predicted quite a few things. The Spanish flu he had predicted. And there was another sickness he saw coming, so I'm pretty sure it's what he saw with the COVID thing. And I have his book. I got his book on my e-reader thing. So I got a little bored because there was a lot of stuff, Argentina, because he was from there. So I started getting bored. I'm like, hey, I just wanted to see the world in general and not just one country. So I kind of got bored with the book a little bit. Okay, so maybe we want to get into it. The first point that we want to look at.
So the first thing that we have here on the list is the death of a political leader. So what it says here, and I have this in quotation marks, and like I said, I've gotten this off of some websites. I can send you guys the links if you need. It says, the sudden death of the first character, he will be changed and they will put another in his kingdom. So this could be, to me, this feels like it's very powerful. So I would say, maybe it's Joe Biden, maybe it's the Queen, the United Kingdom, right? Maybe it's Korea. I don't know. But to me, I don't know, maybe you can come back with what you see, Lou, or what you're connecting with, but it feels like it could be, I'm feeling more the UK, to be honest.
I mean, the queen at some point's got to go, but I mean, she's so, I mean, how old is she now?
Oh, 90 something. I don't know.
Would you consider her a political leader?
Well, it says they will put another in his kingdom. So kingdom sounds, obviously this is different language he was speaking back then. But I don't know. It could also be Joe Biden. Like, it feels like that could be Joe Biden for sure.
I feel like if I had to pick out one that has a bigger probability of leaving us sooner, I feel like it's Joe Biden.
I'm getting like 50-50.
Maybe they both go.
But to me, it's interesting. I'm feeling a lot, and like we've said, and where I feel also astrologically speaking, incredible shifts are going to start to happen in the United States. They already are. So I wouldn't doubt that it would be Joe Biden or, the United States in general, where this would be affected. But that being said, I feel like this is already kind of happening in a way, right? Because if we look at what's happening politically, there's just so much divide. And in some ways, some people don't even consider him their leader. So that could also be, like some people might say, well, it's like he doesn't exist. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I didn't think about that. But yeah, United States, I mean, we talked about this, I think, on the prediction episode. This always energetically to me felt like financial collapse for the US. I've been waiting. I mean, I keep saying it. Like we had a massive crash with the stock market
huge.
And crypto. Everything went down. So maybe that's what I was feeling, because I was like, where is it? It should have already happened. Like, I was feeling it since October of last year. And I was like, it's happening in September or something.
I feel like there's forces trying to stop it from happening.
Yeah, so it's something, yeah, I don't know what it is. But like literally I was expecting in September, I was really feeling it in October, and then I just kept not seeing it. And it felt like it already had happened.
Yeah.
I said this last time we were talking about it. Like, I felt like it's like hidden, like, where is it? So maybe they were covering they were managing to keep it up. I don't know how that stuff works, actually. Like they can manipulate the market in some sort of a way. We know that. They've done that before. So maybe there was a manipulation for it not to go down, and now it finally started showing what it's really at, I guess. Because I feel like we're seeing the true essence of the financial collapse now. The beginning of it, by the way.
The beginning. Exactly. Yeah.
There's
so politically speaking, I think this year will be interesting politically for a lot of nations, especially the United States. And I wouldn't doubt that this would happen there just because of the energy we're getting there. I mean, I feel like that people are starting to kind of wake up to certain things, and they're starting to just kind of fight for freedom, fight for their rights. In different ways. This doesn't have to do with the pandemic. It could be for other ways too. Like, the conversations we've had with, I don't know when this comes out, but when we had a conversation with Christos and Foster, we talked a lot about, the misogyny and women's rights and things like that. And I think there might be more of a pull of women coming into leadership, and that energy, I do feel that energy coming through probably a little bit more for the future. I don't know if this year, but more into the future, maybe a couple years in more than this year. So there's going to have to be radical changes in that sense. Politically speaking, since we're on this topic, I think politically speaking, everywhere on the planet, people are going to demand change. And people are going to have leaders that are going to create that change and going to honor people's rights, freedoms, and an actual democracy, where in a lot of places that's not being honored. So,
yeah, I feel like, so we talked about like the U.S., right? And I've been getting from Akashic Records that the quality of life in Europe was going to go down, and I never really knew what was the catalyst for that or what exactly, but they always use that specific word, the quality of life. Like, it was going to get to a point where people even living in Europe were like, yeah, this isn't like nice anymore. This isn't safe anymore. This isn't, this isn't the where I used to live. This doesn't feel so aligned anymore, kind of thing. So I think that we're in the beginning of a massive shift. I think this is going to be for like the next 5 or 6 years. I think that we're in the massive shift where places that used to be less quality life and places where you would rather not live, starts slowly converting and transforming into places that people do want to live, and becomes more secure and more structured, I guess you'd say. Yeah. And I feel like places that used to be those safer places that people sought out, that wanted to live or dreamed about living or whatever, those places, it's like they're giving up. You know how I see it energetically, the way the Akashic Records showed it to me? It's like, I'm giving you the hat. It's your turn now. So it's like we're shifting.
Yeah, the ball's in your court.
Yeah, well, that's more like balls in your court is more like a competition thing, whereas the energies respect each other, and certain areas of the world go, well, now it's my turn. It's for me to wear the hat. It's my turn to have that place for the world. I'll hold that space now, kind of thing. So we're in the beginning of that.
Well, since we're already on the topic of the fall of the European Union, those are one of the points that he put forward. And it says, in quotations, it says, sacred temples of the Roman time will reject the foundations of their foundation. So in some of the stuff that I've read, it talks a little bit about Brexit and the dissolution of this political community. So I do feel like we've already seen shifts in the European Union, in Europe in general, right? It's England coming out of the European Union, and then massive shifts. I mean, like just in general with the pandemic, I feel like a lot of countries have started to show their own, like it always seems so unified in so many ways. And now it's like people are starting to separate. It's like, this is what I believe. This is what we're doing. This is our way of kind of interacting and doing things. And we're going, I don't know, we're going to go like our own way. It feels like there might be more separation in that sense. Yeah.
Astrologically speaking, I heard someone look at the astrology of like different countries in the European Union, and I've heard astrologers actually say that, what you just said. I've heard them say that the energies for certain countries in the EU are perfectly aligned for them to become, again, I call them rebel, but come like, you know what, this union no longer suits me. I'm going to separate myself. And so, you know,
to stand alone, maybe.
I also feel like the whole thing that we're going through right now, like as we speak, I don't know when this episode comes out, but as we speak, there's this whole if that this war with Russia and Ukraine happens or not, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like there's going to be some European countries that are like, I don't want to be part of this. And they're going to be expected to send their troops or their men, or they're going to be asked if they're willing to send it if anything happens, kind of thing. And I feel like there's certain countries that are going to be like, no, I don't support it, kind of thing. So maybe that's kind of a one of the things that gets the ball rolling with them deciding to separate, because it's kind of like when you're part of the group, you kind of have to support the group, right? So I wonder if that's something.
You have to agree. You have no option. If we're all in, we're all in. You know what? I keep thinking back to the episode we recorded on our 2022 predictions, and the feeling I kept getting with Europe and how things are just not going to be the same. Like there's going to continue to be shifts. And I don't think this is going to be something that's going to happen in a year. I think we're going to start to see it more like affected. Like people are going to be more affected. Things are going to physically start changing this year. You know, Brexit happened when it happened, but it still takes time to see the effects of that. And I think this is what I'm getting, at least from the Akashic Records. It's going to be a slow shift, but things are going to start to like take their own place and know where they stand, and being able to kind of fit in a different way, and figure out what those agreements are, and figure out what the new way of coexisting will be, because it definitely feels like it's not going to be an easy transition. There's going to be a lot of pushing and pulling, and it's going to be a lot of a lot of weird energies going on in Europe, and it feels like there's a lot of opposition in certain things. It doesn't feel like it's going to be very straightforward.
I'm like here right now in the middle of Europe, and I felt in the past maybe 4 months, I think I would say, something in the air and the energy's changed. Like it feels a little unsettling. It feels a little bit like everything's in the air and something needs to come. It's like, you know, it's
ground.
Almost like you threw something up in the air and you're like, well, eventually it's going to come hit me. It's going to come back down again. And I feel like I'm like holding I'm like holding myself, like, you know, like when you're clenching your teeth, I'm feeling like I'm waiting for like the thing to come. What is it? What is it what's coming back down kind of thing? I've been feeling that way. And so I'm wondering if it's all that's the slow deterioration of the quality of life here and all those things that might come into play for that to happen. But we're talking about contractual agreements that countries have in the Akashic Records. Every country has its own agreement. And they agree upon, I will have the right to stand in, you know, in this position, hold this position in the world, and these are the things that I need to go through with my population. These are experiences we need to have, right? But I also feel like part of that contract is now I'm going to step back and have less authority or have less power or have less prestige, or it's like the quality, it's like something goes back instead of forward. Instead of progressing and getting better and evolving, I feel like we're taking steps back. And that's part of the contractual agreement of the area where I am, you know, all around this area here. I feel it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't speak for that because I'm very far away from that, but I feel a weird energy in Europe, and I definitely feel like whatever Nostradamus predicted or he's seeing, you know, this fall doesn't necessarily have to happen in 2022. It could be something that's already, like, it's already happening in some way. And it's a ripple effect, right? It'll just start to crumble.
Yeah, it's already begun. Yeah. Energetically, it already began. It's weird for me because I'm in a town where there's no spirituality where I live. Really, there's not that I know of. I don't know anybody here that is. I'm like the only person, and I'll go to like pick up, you know, drop off Aurora and pick her up, and sometimes that pickup is like me waiting outside between 5-7 minutes, waiting for the kids to come out. And there'll be, you know, other parents standing around waiting for their kids to come out. Because of COVID, now all the parents wait outside and the kids come outside, right, to pick them up out there. And so we're all standing out there. And sometimes I'll have this weird mood where I'll just look around me and go, everyone's totally oblivious and they think life is just going to be normal again. And I observe, it's like I observe everything around me and I just feel like I'm the only weirdo that sees it. Like this is not normal, and I just feel like it's not normal that everyone's acting normal. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think there's aspects of that. Like some people are just like, well, what can I do? I'm just living the best I can, and you know, there's moments I want to be oblivious to everything too. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with all this. It can become too much, especially when you see things one way and somebody else is seeing them another way and you're feeling it very viscerally in certain ways. And you feel like people aren't waking up. They're not living this the way it was intended to be lived, right? There's so much to be learned from what we're living, and not everybody's going through that. And that's something that we've said this before. We're not here to push anything on anybody. You have to experience it the way that you feel you need to experience it, but I can guarantee you we're all here to learn something. Otherwise, this wouldn't be happening. We wouldn't be going through this struggle and this hardship. I could tell you that.
Yeah, totally. All right. Want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I'm going to put the next one as inflation and starvation. That's because I think we already talked a little bit about the economy and stuff, and I think we can just get that out of the way now. So the quote here is, "So high the price of wheat that man is stirred his fellow man to eat in his despair." So here it's mentioning kind of the United States at its highest inflation in 4 decades. And we were talking about the market. As we're recording this, it's the 26th of January. And this week actually was when the markets hit such a huge low. Like, it was insane. It was actually kind of scary. But I do feel like something in the economic or financial, something in that energy field, it's going to be affected. I feel like it's hanging on by like a string, and we're going to see the effects of everything we've been living the last few years and all the choices that have been made. We all are somehow affected by it now, but it's going to collapse at some point. It has to.
I follow on Telegram, it's called the Ice Age Farmer. And he does some really good videos where he explains things that are going on with like finances or food. He talks a lot about food, like a farmer. He talks a lot about like food and stuff like that and shortages coming and things like that. And I don't know when it was, but at some point I saw him post that wheat is at its highest price. And I don't know how long. I don't remember the numbers.
Really?
Yes. So it's like doubled.
That is interesting because that's exactly what it says. So high, the price of wheat. That man is stirred.
I didn't bring my phone.
That's interesting.
Because if I could, I could check my phone to see what he posted. So that's one thing. And they're talking about how countries were hoarding their wheat. I think one of them was Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. Countries are hoarding their wheat, so they would export double. But now, since they're realizing there's a shortage of wheat, they're keeping half of what they used to send out of the country. So now there's not only wheat going up in price, but it's also being hoarded by countries that used to export it much more because they know what's going on. So that's actually already been happening for maybe 2 months, I think it was that I saw it. That's one thing. And then inflation has already, I mean, the U.S., I also saw he posted about inflation. That's already gone up a lot. The funny thing is it's gone up basically everywhere in the world, but a lot of people don't seem to really notice it very much. You have to like write down the prices of what you bought or have old receipts and check it, and then you'd probably see how you're paying more for your milk and your this and your that. I mean,
there's always some inflation every year, right? There's always a percentage, but to me,
no, this is like it's a record inflation.
It's notable. No, of course, and it's noticeable. Like even here where I live in the Cayman Islands, like everything's gone up way more. Like you spend way more at the supermarket, you spend more with everything. It's quite crazy, to be honest, and especially a place that's already expensive, and you don't see necessarily this rise in what people are getting paid, like their salaries, right? There can be an adjustment in that sense, but housing prices are still high. Like how are people, how are we all going to get through this? But also when I read through like the lines of inflation and starvation, I think if we look at it also in a spiritual sense, like there's starvation within ourselves of our own experience here. Like we're being starved of certain things, of experiences, of living life, of being repressed in certain ways. And that in some ways causing a starvation within ourselves. Like that's the kind of message I'm getting of like feeling like empty. A lot of us are feeling empty right now. Like what do we do now? Where do we go from here? And how do we create change so that we can start to live, we're not going back to what it was, but how can we start living in a better way? How can we make things even better and start to heal and start to live in a more aligned way? But I think there's no doubt about the inflation. And to me, that inflation is going to grow if things don't change pretty drastically, if things don't start to move in a different direction.
So I found it. It says grains, wheat, and corn are up 20% in 2021. And soybeans, so he posted this last year, not too long ago. Oh, no, he posted this, the 3rd of January. So it was up 20% since 2021 in 2021, and soybeans edged to third year of gains. And let me see, U.S. corn. It's really long post, by the way. And then they talked about.
Maybe you can send me the link. I can share it with everybody.
Yeah, I can send you the Telegram link and the link to this. Yeah, so let me copy that for you. And then I wanted to read. It talks about. I sent this to our Telegram group. It says Italians face more expensive spaghetti after pasta costs soar.
I mean, it's a reality.
It's crazy.
We're all seeing everything go up. Like I remember even like a coffee shop here. Like coffee here isn't even cheap. Like it was up like $1 or 50 cents. Like that's a huge. It's already expensive, and you're already charging me more, which I get because they're probably paying more for it. They have importing costs. They have, nothing's really from here, so I get that, but. I see this affecting, I don't see a place not being affected by this. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of that. Just the beginning.
Yes, this is definitely just the beginning. This isn't something that's like, okay, this is it and it stays here. No, we're seeing the beginning. I mean, we're just seeing the crash of the market that you were saying. And I think that, it was already happening. For some reason, it's just being, it's severe. If you follow this guy, you see fertilizer, Lorena, inflation, which means the cost of every food that we produce that needs the fertilizer is going to go up. It says fertilizer inflation contributes to higher food prices. Yeah.
Well, also, if we think about inflation and starvation, we have to think about also, a topic that's been pretty big right now. It's the logistics of getting food and the transport. Like, what was it? What were they calling it? I can't remember the words. The supply chain. That's it. The supply chain. The supply chain's been a whole issue for like before Christmas, right? Like even just last year, people were talking about supply chain and how some people, this is what I get from people I know back in Canada, friends of friends, and they're sending me photos and they're like, there's parts of the supermarket that are empty. There's nothing on the shelves in certain parts of the supermarket. People are buying out. Like even in Australia, I hear people saying there's no toilet paper, there's no this, there's no that. People are like buying everything out because I think people are already seeing what's coming and they are fearful of being out of things. And that's bringing us into this spiral of like
But isn't that because of the trucker though? Isn't that the trucker situation?
In Canada right now, yeah, but that could be part of what he's seeing here. Mm-hmm. If we're not all aligned, if we're not all doing our jobs, we're not allowed to live in alignment and do what we need to do. If there's suppression or there's rules or changes in things, right? Then there's gonna be someone affected by that. And sometimes I think this is where we're saying people living in oblivion, like, things are great. It's all right. Things are going to go back to normal. No, they're not. And it's like, well, one person being off in this kind of like cycle can affect you. It can affect your family. It can affect a friend. So we have to think about the repercussions of everything that's happening right now and what role we play in that too, right?
So the Akashic Records were saying in 2020 that the time that we were, go in and we were all that, they were telling us to start growing our own food and to create communities where everyone, in your community kind of is growing something different. And I think that they saw this coming, and obviously they didn't tell us exactly how it was, but
not in a scary way because they don't like to do that.
No, they don't like to do that. Well, except for if you're Nostradamus, then you get in a scary way, apparently. But yeah, I think that they were preparing us to not have to stress out. They want us to have a more aligned life, and they want you. So they wanted this could all be happening in front of you. You said, "Well, that's great that I have a backyard packed with food growing. I'm fine. I just need some like extra things, and I'm good to go." So I think that they were preparing, just making sure that we were taken care of, no matter what scenario our free wills took us into. So yeah, all right. So that one's kind of clear that it's already happening. So he was right.
Yeah, and then the next one is dramatic effects of climate change, or we can also call that global warming. What do you think about that?
So I do think that there's climate change. Well, I did a whole episode where I channeled the Gaia's Earth, Mother Earth. I channeled her Akashic Records for the Patreon for the second time because we really liked the first one and they wanted it again. So I did another episode, and what's interesting is out of everything she said, which she said a lot, but it sounded like Earth wasn't the only one going through, if you want to call it global warming, climate change. Like to me, I hate those words. I think that somebody put them there and then everything falls under that category, and that's not always the way it is. All the planets seem to be going through some sort of a warmth process or changing process, and Earth, of course, is in the same sphere. Like Pluto's going through it, Mercury's going through it, Jupiter's going through it. Like, of course, we're going to go through it too. So I think that part of what we're seeing is that. I think another part of what we're seeing from what Gaia made me understand is she's going through a change and a growth, and she's shifting and she's moving. So we're going to see land move and change. We're going to see waters move and change. Like maybe some lands go underwater, maybe some land comes up from underwater. Like it feels like she's going through a lot of change. It's not going to happen in 1 year, go boom, and it'll change. But I feel like it's a gradual process where she's upping her changes this and next year. So I feel like these next 2 years, we're going to see a lot of maybe volcanic activity or earthquake activity, or there's going to be a lot of activity because it's like she's stretching, she was saying. Like she's like stretching. So I feel like part of it is that. Part of it is what all the planets are going through. And I think part of it is, of course, human error or human whatever, what things that we've done. And I'm not going to exclude the things that I know that us humans are not doing on purpose, which is I used to not believe in chemtrails till I asked the Akashic Records about it. And then I found out that it's true, that they're really spraying stuff in the air. And sorry to those that might not believe it. It's fine. You don't have to believe it, but I do. I believe in that because I've connected with that. And I think that things like that those are polluters that actually really, really severely contaminate and affect Mother Earth and us, by the way, all of us. So it's not just human error as in we're throwing plastic in. Well, by the way, plastic. Have you seen the pictures of the masks in the water? People have been complaining about plastic. Like,
oh yeah,
forget about it. Like, the masks have done more damage in 1 year than the plastic has done in how much? Like,
probably.
The pictures at least made it look that way. But, you know, these days you don't know what's real and what's not. Maybe they just gathered them together for the picture. I don't know.
Yeah. So he's talking here about like earthquakes, floods, droughts, melting of the poles and the rise in sea level. So, I mean, just out of our own personal experiences with this, you know, earthquakes, wasn't there just an earthquake, right?
Was there? Where?
Underground earthquake. Was that Tonga?
That was a volcanic eruption.
Oh, sorry, volcanic eruption, volcano. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and that came right after the one in La Palma stopped going.
Yep, volcano eruption. Okay, and then floods and droughts. That's Uruguay right there. Like
Brazil
in other
too
parts.
had it.
Brazil. Oh
Argentina
my gosh,
was
they're
having
so affected.
Fires.
Yep, Uruguay
floods.
too. There was massive fires, and then because of drought, and then all of a sudden massive flooding. I've never seen that flooding ever. Never. Like, it's just insane. And we're talking about like temperature wise, you know, I hear Australia has been really hot. Uruguay has had record highs, like over 35 degrees. Like, even at times, like I remember last year, the year before, 2 years ago, like the time that it started to go up to 40 degrees, I don't even remember it going over 25 degrees. Like, just, you know what I feel with like this climate change? It's just sporadic and erratic. Like, things will change and all of a sudden you're supposed to be cold, but it'll be warm, or supposed to be warm and it'll be cold.
Yeah, we did an episode about that, Lorena. Do you remember? Was it this was before COVID, I think we did the episode. It was an episode, I remember. We talked about how places that used to be cold start getting warm.
Yes.
People start being warm, start getting cold. So there's a lot of different changes going on. So we talked about that 3 years ago, I think it was.
I don't remember how long ago it was, but yeah, I remember that now that you mention it that way. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think he's off with what he's saying here, what he's kind of connected with, because it definitely feels like, you know, even here a couple years ago, was it 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, there was an earthquake here.
I remember you were so scared. Yeah.
Everybody was freaked out. It was, you know, it affected us, a lot of people, for longer than others, because some people got affected with like water pipes and stuff like that, because it was that massive. And it's a tiny island, right? It's not huge, not tiny, but it's smallish. So yeah,
there was a country in Africa last year, I think it was, that had a really big earthquake, and it was so big that a bunch of scorpions came out and people died from the scorpion bites.
Oh my God. That's what I'm talking about. The effect, the chain effect of like things. When one thing happens, something else is going to happen. So it's like we can't escape some of these things are going to happen because they're all tied together. And we're going to just have to learn to change things and learn to start to deal with things differently. So I don't think he's far off here. And I think, you know, when we were talking about, let's go back to the 2022 prediction episode, we were talking about how the narrative might change, where they might push global warming and climate change as like the new pandemic, right? Like the new thing to worry about. I feel like there is something that we need to worry about with global warming. I do feel like it might not be the way that they're talking about it, but I definitely feel that there are changes that we need to make in order for this not to like get worse.
Side note, not everything we've seen or we're going to see is only Gaia.
No.
We have man-made stuff that's going on that like we'll never find out from the news. They'll never tell us this was fake or this was, you know, manipulated by some sort of machinery and this is why we did it. No. They want to, the word here is fear, and they always want people to be in fear. Because being in fear means you don't get your most enlightened state. You're too busy being fearful.
You're controlled if you're in fear.
Yeah. So that's like
it.
The general outcome of, or the general, what's it called? Not outcome, what they're looking for. What word do you use there? I don't know.
It's the effect they want to have.
Yes. Okay. That. And so I think that some of it will be naturally Gaia doing her changes and all these things that she said. But at the same time, I think that they are going to do a few things to manipulate that level of fear. And because what they want to do is start showing you, look, but really, you see, we told you it's going to be bad. We told you, look how bad it is. Look over here. Oh, look over there. Oh, look over there. And of course, the fear porn where they'll put on images from different angles 20 million times, like all day long, right? Kind of thing. So people just get more and more fearful, and that just stays in their subconscious mind, like the replay of that image of people running or water coming or whatever it is, right? And I'm not downgrading that might happen. What I'm saying is the more that we all see that and we feed off the fear, we're helping that be like it's a reality. It's a reality. It's being created, and it's not only is it creating, maybe it's already created, but we're making it a little bit worse. The collective is helping enhance that effect some sort of a way. So that's another thing. And the other one is, now we can tell you how much you can go on vacation for, how far away you can go, how many cars your family can have. So, I mean, that feels like an agenda in a sort of a way, right? So we need to really start taking care. We all need to like up our game and be like, remember, this is the year of action. Like, this is the year I'm going to start growing my own food. This is the year I'm going to stop doing this so much. And so now we know that we're starting to do things right. And at some point, if a government comes to us and says, you can no longer do that, you go, well, I've changed this, this, and this, and this, and this. And everyone can show that they've done something. And as a team, everyone, we get together, we unite all of us, and we say, we will manage ourselves, but you, the government, will not tell us what we can and cannot do, because we care about ourselves and our environment. But that means unity. That means real unity. And we're not even close to doing that, which means we're still very much controllable.
Yeah, not only that, it's like, look at what they're doing and not what they're saying, right? Because all these people are talking about climate change and what we need to do to make, they're not the examples of how we should be living. They're probably jet setting in airplanes in their private jets and having these ridiculous cars and spending money and doing, you know what I mean? Like, we all need to be that example if that is the issue. But another thing I'm getting is like, yes, climate change is a real thing. But at the same time, I think there are parts of what's happening that isn't about climate change. I know you're seeing all this man-created stuff. But to me, it's also the energy of the year and probably a little bit past 2022. It feels like there is a lot of upheaval of energy. And that, to me, that will be earthquakes, that will be volcanoes, that will be tremendous and big catastrophic things happening at like an earth level. And that's, to me, it's part astrological, like the alignment right now, astrologically speaking, for the next over a year, I want to say. So I think that also is playing a huge, huge part in what we're seeing and how we're experiencing it. And there's a reason why we need to see this. You know, we need to realize the power that Gaia has and that we're mistreating her. We're not taking care of her. We're all living in a very selfish way most of the time. And how can we be kinder to her and ourselves because we're one with her?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because the life that we are all living is already set in a way that is some sort of way abusive to Gaia. So now we need to find another way. But like, what is the way? Be able to have a little bit more space to grow your own food, being able to maybe get to your job on a bike instead of in a car. There's just so many things. But then, finding a way to have sustainable energy, like there are things we can't control. Yeah. There's things that, unless you have money to invest in solar panels or, wind stuff for your own house, it's not accessible for everybody. So it's not so easy sometimes, but we have to start taking steps. Like, what we need to show Gaia is not only are we going to think about her, we're going to connect with her, we're going to have some sort of a relationship with her, because maybe we're growing things with her now. We're going to try to take care of her and take steps to do less abusive things towards her, and connect with her. Like, we need to we need to connect with that energy and start a new, it's like a mom, like start a new relationship. She talks about that as well on the Patreon episode. But the problem is what you and I can consume in a year, those people that you're saying that, have private jets, those people do much more damage than we do in a year. They might do it in a week.
That's what I'm saying. See what don't listen to see what they're doing.
I mean,
what
they
are their
did
actions?
the G whatever conference. It was in Scotland. I don't remember now. I talked about it before.
I think so, yeah.
The amount of private jets. They could have all been an example and somehow gotten together and had a bunch of people on one airplane like we do on Coach, right?
Yeah.
But no, they're jet setting privately, all the world leaders in their own little private airplane. Yeah, no. What you guys just did to meet up to talk about climate change, you just ruined it. You accelerated it for 3 years or something.
It's funny in a way if you think about it. It's like, what are they... It's crazy. It's just crazy. Anyway, okay, so the next one is the rise of AI. It's not something I think a lot about, but I hear a lot of people talking about AI, artificial intelligence. And some people have this theory, especially what it says here. It says, as more AI begins to gain conscience, the prophecies warn us about one of them becoming self-aware and possibly take over our system. In a world where everything is connected to the internet, we must be weary.
I don't think that's going to happen for now because there's so many people waking up to the spiritual movement. Yeah. That I feel like people they really want to be a spiritual, conscious connector for themselves and empower themselves. I think that we've managed to derail a little bit from that projection. That doesn't mean we'll never get there, but if you watch Gaia like I do, you have quite a few interviews where people are very concerned about AI.
Very.
And the moral and the ethical part of it and how dangerous it is for humanity. And I'm still wrapping my head around it. Like, I find it really hard to think an AI can somehow be so conscious. Like, the only thing it reminds me of is those, like, hauntings in houses where so many people have gone to visit and the fear creates this new mass that becomes conscious in itself somehow. And it's formed from thought form and from people's fears. And it actually becomes this whole entity. So that's the only way I can imagine it being created, because I can't imagine the AI just doing it on its own. Like, I don't know. It's weird for me.
Yeah. I don't really get much info with this because maybe just something I'm not too connected with, like you said. I think it'll be something more to look into the future. It doesn't feel like it's an immediate concern for this year, for 2022 at least. What I connect more with is more technology. Like, how is technology affecting us this year? And it feels like there's so many advancements coming. I feel like it's just not coming from, I don't know. It's coming from like a weird place. Like, I don't know. What comes to mind is like Elon Musk talking about implanting a chip, or this or that. And it's like, technology is great, but technology can also go the wrong way. And I think this is where I'm connecting more with this AI stuff. Like, it could be AI or it could just be technology in general. It's like, we have to be careful how we use technology. It can really be good. Like, let's talk about social media for a second, right? Social media can be great. It can help you connect with so many people, help you get a word out about something that you're really passionate about. It can help people connect with your story, but at the same time, it can consume us. It can take over our lives. It can put us into this comparison energy, and it can make us feel like crap. It depends how you use it and what intention you have behind it. So I think this, to me, is where I'd worry more about the people behind the technology. Like, what are their intentions? And that's where I'm seeing a little bit of low vibration in some sense.
Well, so there's this whole, there was a whole, people would label it conspiracy theory, but there was this whole theory of how they want to make like chipping people so that you can have like your bank and then your medical information, all this stuff. And a lot of people believe that this whole push for vaccines, there's intelligent thing behind it where they're going to have your information. It's going to be all stored in one place. And a lot of people were, and I'm not one that talked about it, but I saw people talk about it. And those people were called completely and utterly conspiracy theories and crazy. I remember seeing it. And now the EU just announced that they're going to do that. They literally announced that they're looking at a smart, so you're going to be like It's like you're going to be chipped. Every person's going to be chipped in Europe. Every resident citizen, they said. I would need to look for the article exactly how it said it, but the idea is that your medical information is going to be with that. Obviously all your statuses, like if you're in jail and stuff like that, right? But also your bank account. So the government will now have access to your bank account. So that's something that was considered crazy, and now the EU's openly talking about it. And then at the same time, people talked about the whole vaccine thing with chipping. A lot of people talked about that and were called crazy. And then Bill Gates came out literally saying that they're going to put vaccine statuses on a blockchain now. So they'll have this information so that nobody can lie about a status of I got my booster, or I didn't, or now it will be on the blockchain, and there's no lying about it. And that's going to link to your new ID.
Anybody can look that up.
Anybody can look that up. It can be hacked. The government can even tap into it. They can even check the status of your body, what temperature you are. Are you sick? They can tell you, well, our system says you're sick, so now you need to go quarantine your house. And you'll be like, but I'm not sick.
So you know where I think people are with that? It's like, wow, it just feels so far off, but it really doesn't have to be that far off.
No, the EU, the lady in the EU, what's it called? That lady, I forgot her name. She literally openly talked about it, about the whole that I just said that they're planning on doing. And I was like, I don't think I want the government really. I mean, they could probably. I don't know if they can find out how much money you have in your account or what you have, but because there's something called secret banking in some countries, but I kind of don't want them to have that much power. If they decided tomorrow that you're a criminal and let's say censorship got so bad that they decided that you said something against the government they didn't like China. Well, now we have access and we're going to block you from having access to your bank account, and you can't get medical intervention. You were looking for surgery next week. Well, we're not going to let you have it now. Like,
well, it's already happening.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, you're right. But
so you don't have to have a chip for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, now it's going to get more, I guess, searchable, controllable, more in one place.
Readily available.
Yes. Okay. That's a good word there. So I would say that AI, to me, I mean, maybe my brain, the word AI means, I think, more like a robot kind of thing. But I think that maybe it
doesn't have to be that.
Yeah. Maybe he was seeing this, the technology taking over our lives slowly, determining, what status you have to have on it.
In some way. Yeah, it's controlling us. Yeah, I mean, it could be that AI, like the robotic part of it, or that technology becomes to have its own conscience and it takes over. I think we're far off from that just yet. I don't think that would be something to worry about this year, but I'd be more concerned with what technology is going to create within our everyday life moving forward with whatever changes come this year. I think we're going to have to open up our eyes and ears and really just start to look at what's happening, what is actually happening and what does this technology mean? Because some of it could be really good, but some of it might not have the best intentions. And the reality is, if we look at, social media, I'm not going to name names, but there's data. Data has been shared. Your information has been shared in the past. Why would that not? You even know about it. We have to be careful with that. It's something that we need to be more picky about and stand up for our rights. I think it's easy to say we're all doing this for us to all be okay, but just slippery slope when things start to change. Great. Change is sometimes good, but it depends the intention behind it. What intention is behind all of this? And we don't know. We don't know.
For me, it's easy. It's one word: control.
Yeah, power and control. I know that. I can feel that. But we all need to kind of think a little bit more about that, connect with that possibility that there might not be good intentions behind it. Just keep that in the back of your mind. It doesn't have to take over your thoughts, but it needs to be a possibility. That's all. Okay, and the last one is World War III. I mean, maybe here they're talking more about China and Taiwan. I don't see it in that sense.
Well, China and Taiwan almost did have. They almost did last year. They almost did have that confrontation. So
they have tension, but when I connect with like a possible World War III, I'm seeing something else.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing. I see wars now become more intelligent.
Yeah.
they can be more hidden. They can be more, it goes from...
We're right now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people define COVID, but I mean, let's talk about COVID in a different way than we did before, because when we were first trying to tap into the information, we both were getting it was lab related, linked to the lab. I was really feeling manipulation, and I really felt like some people thought maybe it like escaped a lab, like the Wuhan lab, right? I feel like it wasn't escaped. I feel it was leaked. It was on purpose, so I feel a purposefulness to it, right? And now, years later, we can fast forward. 2 years later, we fast forward, and it's already been confirmed. I don't know if it's formally been confirmed on news, but it's already been confirmed by a lot of leaked emails,
documents.
Yes, it's all over the place. Like, if you haven't seen it, go look at Fauci's leaked emails where he freaking knew the whole time. He's linked to it as well. And
there's evidence.
Yeah, a bunch of it. I mean, Project Veritas recently started getting into that, but it was already out before that.
Yeah.
It was already out before that. So now you can consider that, and I would label that as a war. It's what's it called, bio...
Yeah, it's like a bioweapon.
It's like a bioweapon. Okay, there, yeah.
It's literally affected us, everybody.
It's
everybody.
People have died in the process of this whole thing, whether it be because someone got sick. If you personally ask me, a lot of people got treated badly in the hospital, but that's a whole nother story. Whether it's that or whether it's because some people might have not been able to go work, and some people got, there was starvation in some places. Like, it's not
easy.
Yeah, it could have been the repercussions for each country and each individual.
Many levels to it. Many levels. Yeah.
Suicide, depression. It just goes on and on. So that, I would totally put that into the category of war. If we're being attacked.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I think World War III.
I also think maybe looking at what's happening now with Russia and Ukraine, I don't know what I feel with that. I feel like, I don't feel like that would be World War III. I don't. I'm
getting that it's not going to be this massive war, but my head is seeing the news and saying it looks like it. It really does. But I tap into the Akashic Records, and they're making me feel no. So I'm a little confused because I'm just starting to see the new news coming out, and then I don't know. I don't get it. We were talking about this today on the Telegram. Like, I don't get it. I don't know. I was expecting a yes from them.
Me too, but I'm not getting that at all, actually. Because even when I don't have my records open, I'm like, wow, this is serious. And they keep putting a lot of pressure on that. But I'm like, not feeling that when we talk about this now with our records open.
Well, I'm glad that you too.
To me, it feels like it's something deeper than that. And what we considered war even 10 years ago has changed. And I think that's going to change in the future too.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's a distraction? Because I do.
I do, yep.
Yeah, they're distracting us. I mean, when we all...
Like yeah.
I don't know. It's like they're letting go of some countries letting measures, and then all of a sudden this over here. Look over here now. Look over here. It's like they always want to keep people occupied with the next thing, the next problem.
That's nothing new, right?
No.
The thing is, we're more aware of it now.
Yes.
We're more in tune with it. We've awakened. We see what's going on behind the scenes, most of us. So before, I wouldn't even know what's going on in the world. I live in my own little world all the time. I still do that at moments, but...
Do you think that in the future the news will be like, breaking news, man just saved a child from the ocean? Like, maybe in the future the breaking news, a whole community came together.
I hope. That'd be amazing. There are news outlets that do that, like more independent ones, and they're reporting more on the happy things. Why does news have to be equated to something negative or something tragic? Can't it be like something wonderful and beautiful and something like a good thing? I think all of us are starting to think, did you watch the news? And it's always like, oh, what happened?
Yeah, that means like...
So you're never expecting, like subconsciously, we're never expecting something positive. Yeah, even I said to you earlier, I said, I have some news. And you were like, uh-oh, what happened? You know what I mean?
It's true. Right
I was
before
like,
the call.
oh, the word news is
I
just
said,
like,
oh no, Lorena, should I prepare
negative.
myself? Oh no, what are you going to say to me right now?
doesn't matter what it was, but it's like all of a sudden you're already thinking subconsciously. We already know news equals negative. News equals something scary.
Nice
news equals
observation.
fear. Yeah, I just clicked just now. Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting that we're both kind of feeling the same thing with that.
Yeah.
All right, we've gone. Oh,
Is that
I
all
just
of
hit
them?
my hand. All right, so yeah, we've hit all the points. We will include. Well, Lou sent me those links, so I'll include those links there, and I'll include a couple of the links of what the articles I've read. So if you guys want to check those out, and see if I can find the information I found about Nostradamus. So, yeah. I thought this was like a good idea. I'll probably try to publish this sooner than later so we can have this at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Because we are batch recording right now. So yeah, we'll keep you guys posted on level 2, which should be coming out pretty soon. And if you guys are interested in getting deeper channelings, going in deeper with some of this information, we're on Patreon. We'll include that link below in the show notes, so feel free to check us out there. If you have any questions, feel free to also reach out to us. We can answer any questions you have about this episode or the Patreon or anything. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week with a new episode. And yeah, we love you guys, and we hope you guys are having a good week. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.